Hey guys, welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Andrew Seegers, and this time we're joined by Don Koopman from Nintendo World Report to discuss our hands-on time with The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD. So, let's get started. Alright Don, so we've both been able to play some Twilight Princess HD, you a little bit more than most people, since you actually have the game, being in Europe.
Right.
And they always send you games super early. Whereas I actually went to a preview event a couple days ago and played about 45 minutes worth of the game. So I thought we'd just give our overall thoughts on the game, what we think of some of the changes, and what we think this actually is an overall improvement. So, Don, let's go start off with you, since I know you posted a apparently somewhat divisive preview over on Nintendo World Report. What do you think about this game?
So, let me begin with saying that I don't think it's a bad game in the slightest. I think Twilight Princess is quite an alright game. I don't really love it. I don't really necessarily insanely like it. It's just an alright game in my eyes. And that has been kind of the theme throughout me playing it currently. It has not really changed my mind. And I think that is the biggest complaint I can give the game. That they didn't fix any of the game's problems. And honestly, it's, to me, a very flawed Zelda game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was my take originally too. I wasn't a fan of Twilight Princess, as people already know if they've watched really any of our Twilight Princess videos. With that said, I also wasn't a fan of the Wind Waker. Yet when they remade that for HD, I really ended up loving it because they fixed some of my main problems with that game, being like the sailing, for instance. So I was really hoping that with this game they would do something similar. Now, with that said, I haven't played that much of it. I do have to say though, based on the little I did play, I was a little bit surprised by the fact that one, I actually did enjoy my playtime with the game, and two, I actually thought it looked a lot better than I expected. However, again, I want to stress, that is based on like a highlights reel that showed me at the preview event, so I have no idea how I'm going to feel about the game playing through it in total, or, from the start. So far for you, you don't think these changes have amounted to much for you, right?
Well, as compared to the look of the game, I don't think it necessarily never looked bad, but I don't think the improvements are really there, as they probably should. I mean, it doesn't look awful, but you do see in the textures that the game has that there's a little bit of age showing. And especially when you look at stuff like Farron Woods and the like. And this, I must say, this is also really early in the game, where it looks okay. It doesn't look really that impressive. It just looks okay. And again, that is my main complaint with the game. It doesn't really change my mind about Twilight Princess in the same vein that maybe the Wind Waker or Majora's Mask really has. And that is a bit of a shame for a Zelda remake.
So, yeah, I mean, I totally get where you're coming from, because I mean, when you look at the game, it still looks dated, obviously. You can tell they haven't done much with the models, the character models, for instance. The environments do look a little bit bare bones. As compared to, like, I think the main issue is, like, Wind Waker's art style was a lot more timeless, whereas Twilight Princess wasn't. So, although they made Wind Waker look better for the HD remake as well, it naturally was starting from a higher point, I think. Like, a point it held up better. So, yeah, with Twilight Princess, overall it doesn't hold up as well. I do think I'm a little bit more up on the visuals than you, because I actually was surprised when I first dropped in the Hyrule Field. I was actually taken a little bit aback. I'm like, this actually looks a lot better than I remember. Because, I mean, for one, it was a lot clearer, which I liked. Like, it wasn't covered in Vaseline like the original game looked like it was.
Like the up-res is still decently done.
It is,
but
yeah.
But I think I'm more disappointed in the fact that it's solely an up-res.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of the issue, is that when I first heard the rumor about the remake, I was hoping they were going to go all out on it, kind of like they did with the 3DS remakes, like Majora's Mask. They redid a lot of the models, for instance. Yeah. Like, Link looks a lot better in the game than they did in the original game. Here, pretty much all they're doing is upgrading they're uprising it, and they also redid the textures. And the textures, I have to say, do look great. I think, personally. But yeah, beyond that, they're not doing as much as they did for the handheld port. So, yeah, I wish it went further. I wish it went farther with it. But I do have to say, based on what I played, I actually thought it looked better than I remembered. But you don't.
It does look slightly better than the originals. That's for sure. I mean, there is some way they changed in some way, in particular with how those visuals have been presented now. But again, it doesn't go near as far enough as it probably should. And I'm not saying go full out like that E3 2011 video.
Well, that'd be awesome.
That would have been awesome, but I don't think they will never reach that level anymore.
Right.
Which is actually sort of a shame, because somebody brought it up in the comments about that E3 2011 video, and that video now feels like an entitlement to something like a far cry of a couple of years ago. I barely remember that video until somebody brought it up specifically, and now I'm even more disappointed that they actually didn't do that. but honestly, again, it doesn't look terrible. I just feel there are barely any improvements made to that game, and again, if you are okay with that, that's totally fine. That's totally acceptable. But to me, the bigger problems still are there are still many flawed issues with the regular game as a whole, and they didn't really address those. Like, I played through the entire opening again, and I was just sitting there so are there improvements? So did this change? And it's like, any minute now, any minute.
So
no.
So that was my biggest concern, because I've said before, like, if I had to pinpoint one area of the game that needed the biggest amount of change, it was the intro, because it's such a slow introduction. And I feel like I've said before too that I feel like an introduction to a game is so important. It sets a tone. It sets the foundation of the entire experience. And if you have a poor opening, generally that's going to, for me, like, affect my, well, maybe not necessarily reflect my, change my perception, but it does to some degree affect how I'm going to perceive the rest of the game. I feel like if I'm not in it from the very get-go, it's hard to regain my interest. And it's so for me at the preview event, I didn't see any of the beginning. I only saw late game stuff. Whereas you played from the beginning, and from what you're saying, they've changed nothing, right? As far as you can tell.
No.
Oh, that's so disappointing, because there were so many ways in which they could improve it. I think, largely by just making some of those tasks optional. Because you have to go. I mean, you remember better than I do, but you have to, like, herd goats, you have to go fish for a cat, you have to go, like, save a baby or something, and none of that really comes into play.
I think it's not even a baby, it's a cradle.
It's just a cradle, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all stuff that, I guess you could look at them as lessons or something you need to use throughout the game, but the thing is, for most of this stuff, you use it once, and that's it.
But the big difference for me between lessons and really forced introductional portions is that with Twilight Princess, my biggest flaw with that is that it really feels like unconventional. Like, if you're playing that game for the first time, you really don't know what you're doing. You kind of have to go by hints about what you're actually supposed to do, or talk to random people and then do the tasks that you think is the best thing to do at the moment. Which, I mean, it can be a lot worse, but it doesn't feel like a really solid beginning of a Zelda game. Where, like, for example, if you compare it to, like, I don't know, Ocarina of Time, or The Wind Waker, or Majora's Mask, that opening really gets you. That forces you by the hand from, look, this is what you need to know, now go. And that wow factor, that's missing with Twilight Princess. It
feels more like, whereas most Zelda games start, like, at the proper introduction of the problem that's happening, it feels like Twilight Princess starts a few hours, or a few days of in-game time before that point. So I know what they're going for. They were trying to give you the, the idea of you're just like an ordinary person, basically, like living in this village, and that's fine. It's just that I didn't think they executed it particularly well.
I don't think the story is the problem at all. I think the execution of that is the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Okay, well that's unfortunate to hear the beginning's unchanged. However, they are making other tweaks to the game. And you could probably speak. I mean, you have more experience with this than I do at this point. But, like, some of the additions they've added is the real-time inventory, where you can switch it on the gamepad as you're playing without pausing the game. You can like change into Wolf Link, for instance, just by tapping on the gamepad now instead of talking to Midna. They added motion controls. They added a hero mode that also has a mirrored Wii version of the world, and a few other tweaks. So what do you think about some of those smaller changes so far?
Well, some of the bigger changes, like hero mode, I still need to experience because I basically started at the normal version right now, and I only played through like the really forced portions of Wolf Link, so I'm not really at the point where I've really switched between Wolf Link and Link yet, but I will get there eventually.
Right.
As far as the stuff on the gamepad is concerned, one of my major issues when I played Twilight Princess first on Wii and then on GameCube is that the UI feels a bit over the place. And I don't have the feeling that I changed much at all. For me, like, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask is where Zelda UI is at. It's simple, you flick between pages and then you move on. Like they help. Some of that stuff is really help with being there on the touchscreen because it's instantly in front of you. With the gamepad, you have the map and the inventory, and there's already a mini-map on the screen, so there's not really a necessity to have that map screen there on your gamepad. And then you come to the inventory, which it can easily be done with a button, and then you map the buttons there. So there is not necessarily a reason, not a really particularly majorly one. I think it's okay to have, but it's not particularly major one to play with the Wii U gamepad. And if you take that away, the UI is still a bit of a confusing mess.
So to me though, like based on what I saw, like it seemed pretty similar to Wind Waker HD, and I liked the inventory, or I liked how that worked. So you don't think it works as well in this case though?
For me, like with Wind Waker, it's more straightforward because the UI is solely focused on the gamepad. But for example, the collection screen or other aspects like it, like a bigger map screen, are still tied to buttons on the gamepad or the Pro Controller, depending on what you use. So for me, that's where the key difference is. Like, go either way. Focus all your efforts on the gamepad, or focus all of your efforts on the buttons. Don't go half on half.
Right.
And with Wind Waker, it feels so tied to that experience. Like, they made intricate use of that touchscreen to make those buttons happen. With Twilight Princess, I'm not sure if it's the most needed of things, and it's not, again, it's not a problem that it's there. I think it's nice to have the option, but the option still makes the UI slightly confusing.
I see, right. Huh. Well, is there anything about the interface or the controls that you do like? Like the
I do like the controls themselves. I think that the controls are really well mapped to the Pro Controller or the Wii U gamepad. Again, depending on what you play and what you like. I do prefer playing with the Pro Controller because I just can hold the small controller just looking at the television without thinking.
And does that kind of resolve your issues with the interface being split between screens?
No, not necessarily, but as far as the game itself is being played, I prefer playing with the Pro Controller.
Okay.
Because it's very nice to hold. And you can just keep playing and just let the Wii U gamepad turn that screen off and just let it save its battery for now. So I guess that's a good thing. But I do like how the controls are mapped, especially when you're playing with the Pro Controller. You don't necessarily have the motion controls for aiming the owl and such. Well, you can turn it off on the gamepad and play it off screen, which makes, I think, the UI on a similar level as the Pro Controller at that stage. But okay, I have not very looked precisely into that. But honestly, I think having not motion controls there and just having solely playing it with the buttons regardless of controller still makes the game alright to play. I think the controls are not overhauled too much. I think there was mentioned that they really changed how the horse felt, but
yeah, have you noticed that?
to me, that was never a problem, so maybe I didn't feel that. Like, the horse controls always were impressive to me, even at that time.
Yeah,
So,
I don't remember the horse being a major problem issue or either. But then again, it's been 10 years since I played that game, so
yeah, but again, it's plays perfectly fine. And this is, I think, the main gripe people having with my preview at the moment. I say it's barely improved, and I don't really care for it. That's it. What I'm not saying is that it's a bad version of the game. It's perfectly playable. It's perfectly fine if you want to play Twilight Princess HD on your Wii U.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
don't know.
It kind of sounds like if you were a fan of the original game, then it seems like this would be, if you want to play it again, this would be right up your alley. It's the same game in HD with some improvements that would be better. However, if you weren't a fan of the original, as I said in my own preview, at this point, I don't know if it's enough to win you over. Like in my case, I actually did like what I saw. However, again, I saw a very small snippet of the game, and even then, it was like little chunks of it here and there. Which is going to be more fun because you're hopping around and seeing new things. If I had to play that game from the beginning again, which I'll be doing here once I get my review copy, who knows how I'm gonna feel? And I have a feeling it's gonna be very similar to how I felt originally, but we'll see for sure.
I think we are on a very similar level on how we feel about Twilight Princess.
Yeah, I have a feeling we are. But with that said, I do have to say, I do like that it does seem to be based, basically on the GameCube version. Because they have full camera controls now, which is nice, which the Wii version didn't have, and you're getting the original version of the world, at least you're playing on normal mode, which I think is actually pretty cool from the perspective of that's the one I wanted to play, and I never fully played that version of the game, and it's kind of like actually Don, which one did you play? Did you play the GameCube one or the Wii one originally? Or both?
I did play them both, yeah.
Okay, so all the way through?
I did play it all the way through on the Wii, not so much on GameCube.
Okay, so I guess I was just wondering if if this was kind of like a fresh experience for you, but I guess it isn't since you played the GameCube one. But for me, it's kind of exciting because it's like, oh, this is kind of like a fresh take on this world a little bit, but I haven't experienced the world as it was meant to be originally.
I can see that, yeah.
Now, have you had? I know you had the Wolf Link Amiibo. Have you had a chance to try out the new Cave of Shadows that you get with the Amiibo?
I did try it, yeah. It was a ton of fun. It's actually the most fun I had with the game so far.
Really?
It's basically sort of a score attack mode, where you just try to retain your hearts as much as possible and beat waves of enemies.
I see.
And it's quite challenging, actually. You kind of have to make the best out of the options that Midna and Wolf Link have on offer, so you need to be very good with how they operate. Especially when you are far in the actual main game yet, so you don't have like 3 hearts while you play the Cave of Shadows, which might be a tricky situation, but I got it done. And the reward you're getting, I'm not going to spoil it.
Well, I think Nintendo already has.
Really?
Yeah, well, I'll just say it, and if it's not, then don't correct, or, don't say what it is, but I heard it's a wallet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Nintendo already said that in a press release, so...
But I think that reward is actually, like, really cool.
Well, especially, yeah, because it was pretty easy to max out your rupees in the original game, so it's nice that you're not leaving rupees everywhere.
I think that was one of my major problems. I'm actually glad they kind of fixed that. I didn't have the time to test that before I wrote the preview, but I played it more now. But I do think at least that change is a good change.
No, I have a question for you. So I gotta try the Cave of Shadows as well. But when I played, it seems like you have to revisit it throughout the game, right? I hopped in, I beat a few floors, and it's like, oh, good job, you beat the floors. Come back later, you can do some more. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat like that. Yeah. I came back a couple of times for it now.
Did you have to wait a period of time between coming back, or could you hop right back in and go right back into it?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of anything else. Have you noticed any other small tweaks? Because I know, like, they changed. We talked about the horse. I know they sped up, like, swimming, for instance. That's a little bit more responsive now. I think the load times are a little bit better overall. Like, are there any other small changes?
The load times are definitely better. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Again, swimming was never a problem for me, so I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Have you noticed anything with the music at all, or is that...
No, the music
Okay.
is the same.
Right.
Which is good or bad depending on what you like. But no, I don't think there's anything else.
So I guess at this point, Don, do you see yourself possibly coming around in this game at all, or no? Do you think, like at this point, like you already know how you're gonna feel about it, basically?
I know how I'm gonna feel about it, basically.
Yeah.
I don't think this HD version is really gonna change my mind. Which again, if you really like Twilight Princess to begin with, go
That's a great
right
thing.
ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah, go right
like
ahead.
this is gonna be perfect if you're a huge fan of the original games. I know a lot of people are, so a lot of people really do love the original game, and this seems to be, based on what I can tell, like a definitive version of the game. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, in some regards, definitely. I don't
Okay.
think that they could have taken it a little bit further. But you know, this is coming from a guy who doesn't really enjoy the game to begin with. So maybe if you really love the game, you don't want much change at all.
I mean, I feel I do feel the same way. Like I wish I had gone farther as well.
And here's my beef. People are upset that I don't like it. I am more happy if you like it.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's fantastic. If you love the game, go right ahead and love it. That's fantastic. I feel that's great if you really enjoy that version of the game. To me, I don't really care for it either way.
Yeah, so that's my concern. Like, I am keeping an open mind when I fully play through this game.
Yeah.
Again, because like with Wind Waker, I have to. I didn't expect to like Wind Waker, after, and they won me over.
I will say this: it didn't change my mind.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I'm glad that I tried it again, at least to make that realization for myself.
Oh, one more quick question. Have you tried any of the other Amiibo support? Like Ganondorf, which, doubles the amount of damage you take, which, by the way, I tried that in hero mode, and my god, I was getting wrecked by those freaking Twilight enemies. And then
I did try that. Ganondorf's functionality is cool, but it's kind of pointless.
you know what? I thought that too. The only good thing about him, though, I can think of, or not the only good thing, but like one good thing someone pointed out to me, is I mentioned in the preview how if you play in hero mode, or if you play in normal mode, you use the GameCube version of the world, the non-reversed version, but you get the standard difficulty, whereas if you play in hero mode, that's the only way to get the Wii, or if you want the Wii version of the world, you have to play in hero mode. So basically, if you want a harder version of the GameCube version, it's impossible unless you have the Ganondorf Amiibo, in which case it's basically like hero mode.
Again, I can see that. Yeah.
Well, Don, any parting thoughts you want to give about the game? Anything else we haven't touched on yet you want to mention before we wrap it up here?
I don't think I've missed anything, and again, if you love it, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I think that's where the end conclusion stems from. if you really love that game, there's a new version for you to try.
Yeah.
Go right ahead. If you don't care for it or never loved it, I've got some bad news for you.
Are you doing the review, Don, for Nintendo World Report?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
I might do a review either way. I'm not sure. I do think somebody else might be taking this one for a Nintendo World Report.
All right. Well, we may have to have you back on again for our post-review discussion in a few weeks. So
That's good.
We'll see. Maybe it will win you over, Don. It probably won't, but maybe it will.
At least I saw in a few screenshots that the later areas in the game look a lot better than Foreign Words. So you know what?
And actually, that's a great point. Is because I played later areas of the game. Because you're still near the beginning, or well, I say that loosely. The beginning's like hours long. You're still near the start of the game, right?
I just got beyond the start of the game, so maybe if I get further into the game, that game will look a lot better. So who knows?
The areas I played looked I thought pretty good. Again, not what I originally hoped when the rumor came out, but it looked pretty decent. I thought so.
Who knows? I might turn around on how the game looks. On the game plays.
We'll find out. All right, Don, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you at?
You can find me on Twitter, which is @Nintendaan. That is NINTENDAAN. You can find links of all the stuff that I do really there. There's stuff to my YouTube page and the websites that I write for, and a new project that I'm currently working on, which is called Double Dash Radio.
That's right, you just launched that, right?
It's semi-launched. Like, you can already listen to a 24-hour live stream of music. And it's officially... I got officially the license, so don't worry about any legal stuff or anything. I did it through the proper manners. But programming is still under development and is launching late February.
Alright, that sounds pretty exciting.
And if you really want to know more about that project in particular, I guess it's new, so why not plug it for the first time? I'm here enough anyway. You can find more at www.double-radio.com.
Awesome. I'll put a link to that in the description below as well, if I remember, hopefully.
Yeah.
Alright, I think that about wraps up for us here. Thanks, guys, for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to them in the description below, which is a good way to keep up to date on everything we post. And, of course, keep an eye on GameXplain for more on Twilight Princess HD and other things gaming as well. Catch you guys later. Bye.